Testing.
Good evening, councillors and members in the public gallery.
I will officially open this evening's Ordinary Council meeting at 7 p.m. Thank you for your attendance. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that comments are respectful to the Council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. Please note this meeting is being live streamed. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging. Item 3, announcements from the presiding member. There are none this evening. Item 4, attendance. All councillors are present in the chamber. Applications for leave of absence. Are there any councillors who would like to apply for leave? No? On to item 5, disclosures of interests. Councillors, any interest to disclose? Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a number of interests. 10.2.1, actually, sorry, I'll start trying to do them in order. 10.1.4, the local planning strategy. Based on additional advice that we've all received in last week's advice, out of an abundance of caution, I'm going to disclose a proximity interest and leave the room, and based around the location of my house, and also the heritage issues that are in the strategy. Then 10.2.1 is an impartiality interest. My son swims at Bayswater Waves. I'm a member of the Bayswater Bowls Club and the Embleton Toy Library, or the Basie Toy Library, and the same 3 for 10.2.4. So I'll remain in the room. Those are all impartiality interests. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Osaszowski.
Thank you. I have 3 tonight. The first one is for 10.1.4, the local planning strategy. There is mention in the report of the Morley train station precinct, and my mother owns a property right on the border of that precinct, and I'm declaring an impartial interest, and I'll be staying in the room on that one. My second one is for 10.2.1, the financial report for the period ended 30 November 23. My mum has a property on Farley Way, and it's mentioned in this report, impartial interest, and I'll be staying in the room. And similarly for 10.2.4, financial report for period ending 31 December 23. The street that my mum lives on is mentioned in the report, and this is an impartial interest, and I'll be staying in the room for that one as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I have a proximity interest as well. I've been advised in 10.1.4, so I will have to leave the room.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Item 10.5.3.2, an impartial interest. I'm currently going through this process, and I will consider this matter on its merits. I also have a proximity interest, as we're advised today, also with regards to the local planning strategy item 10.1.4. I own property in one of the areas referred to in the map of the local planning strategy, so I will leave the room.
Thank you. Councillor Eveson.
Yes, the local planning strategy item 10.1.4, I'll declare the same interest I did for the briefing forum of a proximity interest. My residential address is within one of the zones on that document. So I'll have to leave the room for that one.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland.
Yes, I'm the same item, 10.1.4, local planning strategy, proximity interest, because my house falls in one of those areas, and also have a investment property adjacent to it, so I'll be leaving the room.
Thank you. Councillor Latta.
Thank you. I have a proximity interest on 10.1.4, own a business that leases property and also own a property in planning precinct areas.
And you'll be leaving the room?
I will be leaving the room. Thanks.
Thanks. I'd like to declare an interest in item 10.1.2, proposed naming of reserve 33059. The Constantino family is mentioned in this report. Members of that family are known to me through my role as mayor. It's an impartial interest, and I'll be staying in the room. Okay, I'll now move on to item 6, public question time. Members of the gallery, I'll first call for questions on items on this evening's agenda, and then I will open to questions on items not on the agenda. Please provide your name and suburb before you ask your question. Are there any questions on an item on this evening's agenda? please come forward. Just
Check
state your
one.
name and suburb.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
My name's George Cosentino, reside at 12 Cosentino Place. I just want to know if the council is aware that there was no compensatory payment to the Cosentino family when they ceded the property 40 odd years ago.
Thank you. I'll just check with the directors if the councillors, if that information has been shared broadly with councillors.
Through the mayor, we would have to take that on notice and
That's okay.
unaware. Thank you.
The councillors have heard that
So,
comment.
so they're aware?
Well, they've just heard your comment.
Okay. And are they aware that for the last 40 years, Cosentino family, primarily me, my sister and brother, have been tending to that same very land that's not ours, and we've been tending to it.
Thank you for your question. I believe some of that information was captured in the officer's report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other questions on an item on this evening's agenda? If not, I'll move to questions not on the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I have a question regarding a local development site. Are we able to have any updated information with regard to the proposed development at Lot 281 Camboon Road, Noranda, otherwise known as Nursery Hills? I ask this because the site looks very derelict along Camboon Road. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the director to respond.
Thank you, through the mayor. The Development Assessment Panel held a meeting on the 25th of October 2022, whereby a single-storey childcare centre was approved on the site. Subsequent to that, the city recently issued an amended application on the 9th of January 2024, which was to address staff matters. So they wanted to increase their staff, which resulted in increased parking. That was dealt with under delegated authority. We are unaware of when the site will be redeveloped. However, the city did make contact with the owners this week, seeking consideration of improving the site.
Thank you. I'm wondering, in that improvement, is there an opportunity to add a condition for the long frontage on Camboon Road to have some sort of smart screening?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the director.
Through the mayor, thank you for the question. That's certainly something we can consider and put to the owners, but it will be at their discretion.
Thank you very much. And question number 3, with regard to Lightning Swamp Bushland, apart from the enlightened bushwalks, is the city promoting any further building upgrades or environmental school outings that are more pertaining to that big site? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, I'll have to take that one on notice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions on the items not on the agenda? Oh, sorry, we'll just get the mic put on.
Thanks. Harvey Tonkin, Noranda. I'm inquiring about Snap Send Solve. We can send photos to the City of Bayswater, but we don't get any response back because City of Bayswater isn't associated with it. I was wondering, will the City of Bayswater being associated with it? Because there's no point in sending something if you don't know what's happening.
Thank you for your question. I will go to the director, but before I do, I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, the city promotes Snap Send Solve as a way of getting information to the city so people can report damage or things that need to be rectified. So that comes into the city. What happens then is that actually goes into the city's system and is managed through the city's system. So people should be notified by the city through the city's processes, not through Snap Send Solve. But what we are doing, we are looking at potentially upgrading the Snap Send Solve system to be able to do more communication through this so we can get some information back through the system to the person who's using it. So we're going through that process now. We've made no decisions yet, but we're collecting the information to be able to make a decision in future.
Yeah, the reason why I asked the question is because I don't get... No, sorry, that's unfair. I might get 10% response back from the city. The others, I just don't know what's going on. I don't even get a response back from the city, not even an acknowledgement that it's arrived. I have had difficulty with the staff.
So,
Inexperience.
Mr. Tonkin, if you could just ask the question. Do you have a second question?
I acknowledge your response. Can I be assured, no, will I be assured that the city will respond reasonably promptly?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, is our intention to respond within 10 days when we get inquiries at the city, and that's part of our customer service charter. In terms of ones that have been missed, I will look into those and find out what actually happened, and we'll put processes in place to make improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Am I allowed to ask? Thank you, Madam Mayor. I made a call to the Rangers today and I've taken a screenshot of it. I didn't get answered for 40 minutes. And it was a very simple question on behalf of somebody. But it was 40 minutes that I had to wait for a response.
And the question
is that how long should I be waiting?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the director to respond.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. That's something we'll look into. We endeavoured to pick up the phone as quick as possible, and it's in relation to our call centre, but certainly 40 minutes is too long, and we will look into that.
Thank you. I'll pass you the screenshot so that you can see what time it was. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? If not, I'll close public question time. Oh, sorry, before I do that, I always forget this. Councillors, the city has received questions in writing from 3 ratepayers. These questions and the responses from officers have been listed in your run sheet, and I'll take those as read. These questions and responses will be included in the minutes for this meeting. I'll move on to item 7, which is confirmation of minutes for the ordinary council meeting of 12 December 2023, with the disclosure of interest of item 10.3.3, Maylands Lakes Environmental Restoration, amended as shown in the agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Latta, seconded Councillor Maleka. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Item 8 is presentations, petitions. Do any councillors have a petition to table this evening? No. There are no presentations. Deputations were heard at last week's agenda briefing forum. Delegates reports. There are 3 delegates reports on tonight's agenda. The first one, item 8.4.1, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Peterson Pig, Walga Training, the role of mayors and presidents. Deputy Mayor, would you like to move this report?
Yes, please.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, I'll just add that it was an interesting session. It was attended by mayors and deputy mayors, and actually a few councillors as well. What I can say, just one note to councillors, I was impressed how advanced we are with regards to our practices on council around meetings. Some of them were from regional local governments, and I was quite shocked, I must say, how behind they are. Some of them do not even record the name of councillors and how they voted. So that level. So it was easy to understand some of the changes that were recently proposed in the local government reform. But we obviously, there were other things that we can do more. So that's just one comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Latta, do you wish to speak? I'll put this straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Item 8.4.2, Councillor Latta, Walga Training Council Member Essentials Modules. Councillor Latta, would you like to move this? Yes. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Latta, do you wish to make any comments? Just your microphone.
No, thanks. Oh, I guess this is just the completion of my essentials training. I tried to get it done quickly, and it was really informative. some things differ quite a lot between our city practices and the WALGA training, like particularly our budget process and things like that. It's a bit different, but it was still really good to understand the context of local government.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland, anything? I'll put this straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Item 8.4.3, Councillor Eason, Net Zero Symposium, Stirling's Trackless Tram Trial. Councillor Eason, would you like to move this?
Yes, thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Maleka. Councillor Everson, did you wish to make any comments?
No, not much. It's a fairly extensive report, but lots of questions for the city are following this one. Really exciting. So,
Councillor Maleka. I'll put this straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. We'll now move on to item 9, method of dealing with agenda business, and pulling first this evening is Councillor Sutherland. Do you have any you wish to pull?
Yes, I would like to withdraw, please, 10.1.2, proposed naming of reserves 33059. Obviously, 10.1.4, local planning strategy, which I obviously have to leave the room for. And lastly, 10.3.2, the bike education and skills track location option.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ladder.
I'll pull 11.1.
Oh, you don't have to do that. No, it's yours. Deputy Mayor.
10.1.1 to speak about, and 10.5.1.1 and 10.5.3.1. 10.5.3.1, the payments to independent members policy. And that is that. Thank you.
Councillor Bull.
Thank you. 10.3.3. 10.5.2.1.
Sorry, I'm just going to get you to slow down for 1 second. 10.3.3.
Yes,
Yep.
please. 10.5.2.1.
Yep.
10.5.3.2. That's it.
Thank you, Councillor Clark.
There was some that I might have wanted to vote against, but they've all been pulled. So
Okay. Councillor Johnson.
Perhaps 10.5.2.2 if it hasn't been pulled.
No, it hasn't. Councillor Maleka. Councillor Sadowski. Councillor Eason.
No, it'll stop.
Okay.
And my apologies, I'm not sure if it's been pulled, but the one on naming, sorry, I haven't got the number in front of me.
Sorry, which the
10.1.3.
Okay, thank you, councillors. So we'll now move to consideration of reports in section 10. Can I please have a mover and seconder to bring forward item 10.1.2, which was subject to a deputation? Moved Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Eason. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, so 10.1.2 is proposed naming of reserve 33059, and this has been pulled by Councillor Sutherland. Are you moving the officer's recommendation?
Yes, I am.
Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Eveson. Councillor Sutherland.
Okay, well, I'll be brief. I'm obviously happy to support this item. Importantly for me, I think this name is or this change of name is in recognition of families' contribution to the Bayswater and the wider area. There is no doubt that the property was important at the time, and obviously has a is in the heart of the family now. It's also an acknowledgement, in my opinion, to the contribution of the migrant community in the Bayswater area. Just for interest, to let you know, obviously Italian name. Currently, the Italian community makes up 7% of the population. And I think it is always good to have these names to recognise the past contributions, and it gives us a link to the past and gives us a sense of place. So I'm more than happy to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Eason.
Not much more to add. Probably just a big thank you to the Cosentinos for their ongoing contribution to the City of Bayswater. So that's it. Thank you.
Would anyone like to speak against? Councillor Johnson.
Just have a question, if I
Go
might,
ahead.
and probably it came out of a deputation that was made to us in writing, so I didn't ask this at the briefing last week, but is there any plans to zone this as public open space?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the director to respond. Or the manager.
Through the chair, this as well as any other improperly zoned POS will be considered as part of the town planning scheme review.
Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak against? Anyone for? If not, I'll go to the mover to close.
No, nothing else to add to that.
Okay. I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour? That is unanimous. So that concludes the items in section 10 that were subject to deputations. We'll now move to the remaining items that have been withdrawn by councillors, with the first one being 10.1.1, annual review of delegations. Deputy Mayor, you pulled this one. Are you moving the officer's recommendation?
No, I just would like to speak, but I do not would like.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't want to move it. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have a mover? Councillor Eason, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Eason.
No, I guess probably just preempting from some of the questions from Tuesday. So, look, I'm really pleased with the level of delegation that's been requested by the city to be nimble and focused and trying to make sure that they're essentially open for business and development, and that we're a viable option for developers to come straight to the city and work with. So I'm really pleased with that.
Thank you. Councillor Sutherland.
Yeah, I'd just like to echo that, and I think they're sensible, and all in all, it's a really good report. And I just want to be, I'm pretty sure that these changes are going to come into effect with the department on March the 1st anyway. So I think it's a great report, and I think we should do it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, you wish to speak against?
Yes, thank you. Yes, look, I have concerns with mainly with some of the new delegations that are proposed here. One of them, for example, I'll just give a few examples. The increase in the CEO's delegation to accept tenders from $250,000 to $500,000. That means that councillors, the representative of the people, will see much less tenders that our city will deal with. I think that council still should have a supervisory role around tenders to ensure that the process is followed. And I think we have those processes because of problems in the past, and I do not want those problems to return. And it's important that those issues are also in the public record, and otherwise people, and including residents, will not have any access to that information, to any debate, any discussion. Another example is the delegation around the local planning schemes to increase the CEO's delegation for approving development applications up to $10 million. I understand that it comes following the planned amendments arising from the state government reform. However, that delegation will mean that council, if a specific property owner wants council to make decisions, it means that all those big developments will not be discussed, be in the public domain and decided by the local representatives, us. That means that we will not see most of planning developments in our city. And I think residents do expect us to be involved as much as we can. This is what we are voted for, not just to talk about events or the budgets, also to deal with big developments that can have impact on our town centers, on some areas. I think those are exactly the issues that we should be discussing. But if this is approved, we will be removed from the process, and the officers will decide that if it comes to them. Another example is amending the local planning scheme to increase the maximum threshold for car-based variations from 25% to 50% of the total car base required. Again, developments who will need 50% variations, we will not have any say about them. The officers will. I know that those issues are very important to our businesses and residents when it comes to the town centers. I would like to see those situations so I can consider them. I would like to hear deputations. I would like to know if there are any concerns. If there aren't, we can approve the developments. If there are, we should know. Those discussions, again, might not come before council now, and our residents and businesses will not have any public say about them. I also have one issue with an existing delegation that I raised that issue last year, and that is with regards to expiring leases of city buildings. I think if a specific group received a lease for 5 years and that lease is up for renewal, I think that should come before councillors to make sure that this is an opportunity for us to review not only the asset, but how that asset is being used. I'm not confident that the current situation where this is not coming before councillors, we will have any control. I think especially now when we are looking more and more into our asset renewal and disposable strategy, I would like those issues to come before us for discussion, and it should be in the public domain. So I have other concerns, but those are the main ones.
Thank you. Councillor Clark, are you speaking?
I was going to speak against.
Yep, you can go ahead. Oh,
Unless anyone wanted to speak for first.
it's fine. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Further to what the Deputy Mayor said, I'm subject to the debate and being convinced otherwise from the, around this table. I'm minded to vote against this. I've, in the last 6 years, generally voted against how we delegate things here. I think we push things down much too far, and they should be coming to council because we're elected, and this is what we're elected to do, to make these decisions. I think it goes to transparency, as the Deputy Mayor said, but it goes to democratic accountability. At the end of the day, the buck stops with us as elected officials, and so I do think that there should be more coming to us, and that we should be accountable for those decisions.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak for? Anyone wish to speak against?
I just have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
So my question is, it follows on from the questions at the briefing last week, but my apologies, I was late and missed some of it. So listening back to the questions, how long do our development applications take to approve at the moment?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the Director to respond.
Thank you. The statutory timeframe is within 90 days if an application needs to be advertised, and within 60 days if it does not require advertising.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So how's that different to the timeframes for the JDAP approvals? It sounds the same to me.
I'll go to the Director.
Through the Mayor, it is the same. However, if an application requires council consideration, often that will add time to the 90 and 60 days, simply due to the timing of when reports are due and when council is scheduled. So that is why often applicants will go down the JDAP pathway to ensure that it is determined within 90 days as opposed to council.
Ask one more question. Thank you for that. The other one is a governance question. So if we were to not support the proposal on the table before us, would the previous delegation still apply?
Thank you. I'll go to the Acting Manager of Governance.
Yes, through the chair. This report is to accept the amendments to the delegation register. So if this was lost, the existing delegations would still apply.
Thank you for the clarity. I'll make some comments, but happy to let other people speak first if you.
No, Councillor Johnson, please go ahead.
Oh,
Thank you. So one of the arguments I heard for increasing the delegations was it would, fast track the approvals process for developers. But I don't see much evidence for that, particularly when we approve things or JDAP approve things. It's years later before we see any movement, as we've heard tonight, in relation to the question about the Banara Nursery site. So on that basis, I can't see the rationale for changing that delegation. So we'll be voting against this one. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
can I please ask a couple of questions? Thanks. So my first question relates to existing delegation EF-D05, disposing of property that is proposed to be deleted. So the rationale says that it's not needed because it is located in a management practice. So my question is, how can this delegation exist in a management practice with it not existing in the delegations?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the acting director to respond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. When I look at the delegation, so the recommendation is not to remove the delegation, so the delegation would still be in place from the council to the CEO, which gives authority to the CEO to sell or otherwise dispose of any goods that have been confiscated under the Act, authority to dispose by public auction, and authority to dispose when certain exemptions apply. The detail that's being removed from the condition is in this management practice, so it's a duplication, I guess, of that requirement. If the council wants to leave that in as a condition, then that's obviously up to the council.
So just so I can understand it, the CEO already may authorise disposal of plant and equipment that has not been identified in the annual budget, provided it has written down value of less than $10,000 and is no longer used or serves no purpose.
I'll go to the acting director.
Yes, that is correct.
So then my follow-up question is, leaving it in the management practice and taking it out of the delegations, does that mean that for this particular condition to change, the city can unilaterally change it at any time and not bring it back to council?
Through the chair, management practices are managed internally through the executive leadership team. So I guess that would be technically correct, but I don't think that is what would occur in practice.
Thank you. My next question relates to insertion of the new delegation EF-D12, proclamation of plans. My question is, what is the purpose of proclamations of plans?
Thank you. I'll go to the director.
Through the chair. Basically, that's something that's required under legislation that the council needs to sign off on in terms of declaring a particular road to be a state road to be managed under them. So basically, instead of bringing it to council, the idea is to have it through the CEO. Generally, the CEO signs it under the instruction of council. So this is basically to fast track that process, so it doesn't have to come through council.
Thanks. And then my second question is, if it's a requirement by council, what happens if a council resolves to not proclaim a plan?
Thanks For the question, I'll go the Director.
Through the chair, I'll have to take that one on notice. I'm not exactly sure what happens if it doesn't get proclaimed. I think there might be powers to override the council, but I need to find out and report back to council on that.
May I ask another question?
Go ahead.
Thanks. So this relates to the proposed new delegation FM-10, objection to a rate record. So I'm interested to know what the practice has been up until now.
Thank you for the question. I'll go the Director.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry, I'd have to take that question on notice. I'm not sure what the practice has been up until now. I can't recall any coming to council in recent times.
So then I guess my next question, have these been dealt with at the officer level up until now?
I'll go to the Acting Director.
Thank you for your question. I'm sorry, I would have to take that on notice. I'll see if I can find out.
I have another question, if I may. And it relates to the proposed... I've just got to make sure I get the right one. TP... where are we? Oh, yes. TP-D01 local planning scheme. And I'm interested to know when I did struggle with the description in this. It says this amendment is proposed in line with the Planning and Development Amendment Bill, and then it says it's passed both houses of Parliament. So my first question is, has this received royal assent?
I believe that question was answered last week, but I'll go to the Director to respond.
Thank you, through the Mayor, and thank you for your question. A memo was also issued this afternoon as the state government has provided operational dates for these changes. So for the benefit of council here, the changes to the Joint Development Assessment Panel will take place as of the 1st of March 2024. The new significant development pathway will take place as of 1 March 2024. And the new delegations for single houses to only be determined by city officers will take place as of 1 July 2024.
Great. So then my question is, once they are in force, is this delegation still required?
I'll go to the Director.
Thank you. So the delegation is proposed to be able to provide a genuine alternative pathway to JDAP. So an applicant who applied to JDAP will be optional above $2 million for a development. They are guaranteed a timeframe of 90 days going through the Joint Development Assessment Panel and then a decision before the panel itself. This delegation enables applicants to potentially not go through that pathway and instead come through the city, and the city will determine the applications within its statutory timeframes as well, but will have the ability to consider the applications on its merits and make that decision as opposed to JDAP. The reason why we're proposing it is because often if an application is to be determined by council, it adds on additional time to an application, which is often a deterrent for an applicant, where this is allowing administration to consider it as opposed to something that would go through to JDAP. I would also note that under delegation, we can only consider applications where they do not seek a height variation of more than 2 metres or an additional storey. So a development would have to be fairly compliant with respect to height in order for us to consider it under delegation, even with this threshold increased.
Thank you for that. My question, I should have been clearer, was actually in relation to the single house provision.
Thank you. With respect to the single house provision, if council do not support the amendment in this, it will take effect as of 1 July 2024 anyway.
Okay.
So there's no consequence other than the 5 months in between.
Okay, cool. There are my questions. Thank you.
Did you wish to speak on the item, Councillor Ball?
I'll wait to hear from someone who wants to speak in favour first.
Would anyone like to speak in favour? Councillor Maleka.
Sure, thank you. Look, I welcome these changes. I think it sets a really strong and positive signal that we are welcoming families, we're welcoming business, we're welcoming investment into the city, and we're trying to streamline it and make it more efficient, and for the officers to do the job, and that we put trust back in them to do that job.
Thank you. Councillor Ball, did you wish to speak now?
Yeah, thank you. So the issues that I wanted to talk about actually weren't about those ones. Although I did think it was a typographical error when I saw reference to delegating 10 million threshold developments. Additionally, I have concerns about the following. So EFDO5, disposing of property, I'm really struggling to understand how this order all of a sudden doesn't need to be delegated when it has been delegated for so long. Additionally, I suspect that management practices can be unilaterally and are unilaterally varied by the city, which means the council will never have any control over this aspect for want of a councillor bringing a notice of motion, because I suspect that once this has gone to the administration is not going to ask for it to be put back. The delegation around the proclamation, this is a transparency measure, if nothing else. If the question about proclamations doesn't come to council, then there is nothing that tells the public that whatever was needed to be done in relation to that proclamation has been done. So while we don't know what happens if council doesn't make the requisite proclamation, there isn't a closing out of a report that relates to large state infrastructure projects, which actually I think is important to be able to communicate back to the people who elect us and the people that we represent. I struggled with the rationale relating to the uplift of the acceptance of quotations, tenders and expressions of interest from 250,000 to 500,000. The reasoning was that benchmarking showed that 250,000 is still a level that other councils use, and that was it. There was nothing as to the substance as to why that needs to be uplifted, and so I'm uncomfortable with agreeing to uplifting that to 500,000 as a consequence. The objection to a rate record I found peculiar. It seems to me that this would be something that would happen on a semi-regular basis, and it's not something that I can recall ever coming to council. So I don't understand why all of a sudden this needs to be delegated if it's something that council has never had to deal with in the past. Either it should have been delegated and there's a whole heap of stuff that has been happening at the administration level without a delegation, or it actually doesn't need to be delegated. We don't know the answer to that, and I'm not comfortable to just say yes to a delegation not knowing what I'm actually delegating, and given that lack of information. The last thing I'd say is that pieces of legislation that the state government passed that result in the administration being able to make decisions without those items coming to council, I don't think should form part of our delegations. The delegations should be based on what we need to delegate, not fast tracking something that is already coming through the system. So any items that we're being asked to delegate because it's already on the basis that it's already coming through state legislation seems peculiar to me, and I think actually it would be a much better use of everyone's time to not try to bring something forward that is going to happen anyway for want of spending that time working on other things that actually need to be done. On that basis, I'm not going to support what's before us.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak for? Anyone against? Councillor Ladder.
I understand the impulse towards efficiency, but I really feel like with some of these, it comes at the cost of transparency, and I really feel like we have an obligation to residents to maximise transparency in all of our processes, and I think some of these things need to continue coming to council if just for that reason, because it provides a way, it provides a forum for public discussion around them.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this who hasn't spoken?
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
If part of the rationale, particularly on the JDAP and planning aspects, is that the council meetings don't coincide quickly enough, is there perhaps a way that we could look at the structure of council meetings? Because I know when I first came on council, we essentially had a fortnightly meeting, a planning meeting, and then a community meeting. And we had committees involved in that. And that actually, I think, did speed up those processes. So I wonder if actually that is the actual fix here, that council can look at these things and we just have meetings at the appropriate times. The agenda committee meetings don't go for very long, so we could perhaps add in a planning meeting there.
That's a question to the CEO or who? Yep.
Up to you as the chair to determine where the questions go. I
Okay,
understand.
I'll go to the CEO.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I mean, the council meeting process is your process, councillors, so I'm not aware of the rationale behind why you went from committees back to an agenda briefing forum and a council meeting, but there's many examples across many different local governments where they have different committee structures and meeting processes, but ultimately the decision is yours as a council, how you best feel to deal with the decisions that you've got to make before you.
Anyone else wish to speak on this? I'd just like to, given some of the comments by the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Bull, particularly around the tenders delegation, I'd like to seek clarification from the Acting Director. So there were some concerns expressed about lifting the limit of tenders from 250,000 to 500,000. Can you just tell me, below 250,000, which is the current limit, do we even have to go to tender?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. No, the requirement to go to tender, the threshold for that is 250,000. So at the moment, sometimes we choose to go out to tender under 250,000, and that's covered by the CEO's delegation, but essentially all tenders required over 250,000 come to council.
So basically, if that's the case, it's the existing delegation is kind of irrelevant.
The existing delegation applies to tenders under where we've followed a tender process under 250,000.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't have. I'm supportive of this. I don't have an issue, particularly with the tenders one. Tenders, anything below 250,000 doesn't have to go to tender. So to set that as the limit for the tender just seems ridiculous. I think we're sending, this is a message. Do you support more red tape or do you support efficiency and contemporary practices? So that's what I support and that's how I'll be voting. So I'll now go to the mover to close.
Thanks. Look, some good, healthy discussion in there. I guess I won't try and go through and address. I had started, but a lot of the questions became quite similar. So the city responded to a lot of the delegations and strict rules that were in place regarding the local planning scheme. So there's still that criteria around. So it would still need to comply. So it's only about compliance. If it doesn't comply, it's still going to come to council anyway. So there's no lack of control. Car bays as well. We've seen we see developments fail because of car bay rules and I can think of a few instances of that one, childcare being one of them just recently that was used against, and that probably may not have gone ahead. So there's a lot of things, and I agree with the sentiment from Councillor Maleka where it's about this freeing up the city to be able to get on with the job and what we're actually paying them to do, so council can get focused on the strategic view for the future. So that's the reasons why. In regards to tenders, I've seen independent reviews happen at Audit and Risk, and I believe most of the concerns that were raised by Councillor Bull would be addressed in Audit and Risk Committee anyway, in regards to the ongoing due diligence done by the business. It's quite astounding from even the resources area that I come from at the level of governance that local government has, especially here at the City of Bayswater. So I'm very comfortable with those, so that's why I'll be supporting this.
Thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Maleka, Councillor Ostrzowski, Councillor Easton, Councillor Sutherland and myself. All those against is Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark and Councillor Johnson. That is lost. So we'll go to the next item that was pulled, which is 10 point...
Sorry, Mayor, was that by way of casting vote?
No, because it's an absolute majority required, so I don't have a casting vote. I don't have a casting vote. Not for an absolute majority. I'll seek some advice from governance. Can I use my casting vote when it's an absolute majority required?
Sorry, Mayor, was it 6? I didn't actually...
It was 5-5.
I thought it was 5-5, yeah.
That's...
Through the Mayor, no, my understanding is that an absolute majority requires 6 council votes to pass.
It's lost.
Can I ask a question, please? Am I right? My understanding is that when it's 5-5 or when it's an equal number, the presiding member, so in this case the Mayor, still has to use their casting vote one way or the other, but if it's not an absolute majority, then when it's needed, that it's deemed to have not been resolved affirmative? So there's 2 questions.
I'll go to the acting manager of governance. Do you understand the question?
Through the chair, I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
So I'm asking whether there's 2 separate questions. Whether there's a question that requires a chair or presiding member to use their casting vote when there's a tie, irrespective of whether a simple majority or an absolute majority is required. And then the second question is, if an absolute majority is required, then it's deemed to have not been adopted anyway.
How can you use your casting if it's absolute majority? It's not casting.
Right. I'm sorry, I'd have to take that question on notice.
So as the presiding member, I've called that as lost. Okay. So I'm now moving on to item 10.1.3, City of Bayswater Naming Register. Councillor Johnson, you pulled this. Are you moving the officer's recommendation?
Did, thank you, and yes I am, please.
Do I have a seconder? We're up to item 10.1.3, City of Bayswater Naming Register. It's been pulled by Councillor Johnson and the officer's recommendation has been moved by Councillor Johnson. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Latta. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, make a comment and have 1 or 2 questions. I'm not sure what order to do that in.
You can ask your questions first.
Sure. So the question is, under this process, what's the process for adding more names if we adopt this tonight?
I'll go to the manager.
Through the chair, in the future, if people would like to add names to the list, they can submit them to the city. We will assess them against the same criteria, and they will, if they are appropriate, they will be added.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that. And the other one is in Lim 3, we talk about, nope, I've got the wrong one open in front of me. So it still would be Lim 3, but I'll just read the right one. We talk about progressing the naming of the laneway that brought this one to our attention. I'm just wondering, do we have to choose the 3 names or is someone going to choose the 3 names?
Through the chair, we were intending to choose the 3 names. They were from the list. One of the name being Brett, as the person it was proposed to be named after lived on Crawford Road, which is the road adjoining the laneway. Yep. One being Crumper, after Faye Crumper, who worked at the Blind Institute, and was it 21? Sorry.
28.
Karak being an Indigenous name for the black cockatoo.
That's lovely. Thank you for that. Yes, in that case, yes, I'm very happy to move the officer's recommendation without any amendments. This has been such a ride since we first heard about the names that were proposed for this lane. So I'm sorry for the folks that wanted a name for their lane. I hope things have been sorted for them. It has been a longer wait than probably they would have expected, but it really opened up a can of worms. I think it was Councillor Peterson-Pick's question about how many names were on the list when we found out we had a very limited list of names available to us, and the process for opening that the community has been astonishing. We've had volunteer community members go through like the official history of the City of Bayswater, picking out all the names, divvying them up between people and going and researching scores and scores of names, referring back to the Bayswater Historical Society, the volunteers and the Historical Society and other members of the community. And I will name Alex Ellis and Wendy Garstone, who've done a tremendous amount of work on this. We're trying to seek a lot more clarity through Landgate 2 about the existing names and the names of streets that were not originally in the City of Bayswater. So I think there's some streets that came to us from City of Swan and possibly City of Stirling that we don't have records for. So it's really sort of unearthed a whole lot of issues which I hope can be resolved, but really tremendous to see these folks and of course our Aboriginal consultants giving us a fabulous list of names that we can use. We have a criteria for names, and yeah, really excited for this, and looking forward to seeing them roll out. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ladder.
I just want to clarify the answer to one of those questions. So is this the only time that like the register will come to council?
Through the chair, this is the only time the register was coming to be endorsed by council, but each individual naming process will have to come through council to select the names to be advertised.
Okay, awesome. And there's no, nothing prevents people from continuing to add to the list after. Okay, thank you. That's all. I think there's a great list of names and I'm interested to see where they end up.
Thank you. I'm going to move an alternate motion. And the alternate motion I provided is that Council 1 defers consideration of the City of Bayswater naming register to the ordinary council meeting to be held on the 27th of February 2024. 2, request the Chief Executive Officer A consult with the Maylands Historical and Peninsula Association to seek additional names for the register. And B, further reviews the names on the proposed naming register. I'll just wait for it to get up on screen.
Sorry, Mayor, can I clarify? This is not in the run sheet. Is that right? I haven't missed. I'm just checking I've got the right version.
Sorry, I thought it was. It is? Okay.
Page 4. Page 4.
Sorry, I have my page 4 is a photograph, so perhaps just in terms of version control. Okay. Sorry, thank you.
To seek additional names for the register.
You got the correct one,
Further on the proposed name register. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sutherland. Okay, so I'll speak to my old Councillor Clark.
I just want to clarify, so is this a procedural motion? On the screen it says
It's an
procedural, but this is alternate.
It's an alternate motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks for picking that up.
Quick question. Should this be foreshadowed as opposed to just introducing an entire alternate motion? Unless it's an amendment.
I don't think you've had a mover and seconder though, have you?
No, sorry, I did ask for a seconder. I'll just seek advice on that. Sorry, this is what I'm foreshadowing. Okay, sorry, I shouldn't have called for a seconder then. So I'm foreshadowing this and won't be supporting what's on the table. Would anyone like to speak for the substantive motion?
Sorry, Chair, can I just check when, I've got questions about your alternate.
It's not time to.
Okay, so I can ask those when that comes
If it comes.
through. Okay.
Yeah. Anyone?
So,
Councillor Clark, you wish to speak for the substantive?
In favour, yes.
Yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to do a massive shout out to the Bayswater Historical Society and all the amazing volunteers there who have obviously done so much research. You can see here in the sort of 20 or 30 pages that there'll be hundreds more pages on someone's laptop somewhere behind with original source documents to back up all of these statements, I'm sure. I was also really touched to see how many names here in our local Baysy history and region's history are actually prominent women as well, and the role that women were playing here in Bayswater in the 20s and 30s was just phenomenal. I think some of my one of my favourites, I think, was the first female cadet in the Public Works Department in 1938. We had early teachers in 1894. Also, an individual who was involved in the Croquet Club, the Girl Guides Association of WA. Some wonderful stories around, development and how different suburbs, particularly Embleton, were developed and who worked to do that. So I would encourage anyone who hasn't had a chance to have a bit of a read of this. There's some absolutely beautiful stories. I think I want to also say to members of the public, if and when this goes through in whatever format it might be tonight or next month, please add more names. I think the ability for the city and for council to have a really wide range of names to choose appropriate place names is really important. What we call these places really does matter. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm actually going to move a procedural motion to defer consideration of this item to the next ordinary council meeting to be held on the 27th of February 2024. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Sutherland. So I'm moving the procedural motion to allow the CEO additional time to consult with the Maylands Historical Association. I did speak with the president of the association today, and this just slipped past them, and they would like the opportunity to contribute and be on the record for this. I'll now put it to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Ossowski, Councillor Eason, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Ladder, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark and myself. All those against is Councillor Johnson. That is carried. So the next item that's been pulled is 10.1.4, and there are a number of councillors that have to leave the room due to proximity interests.
So just call the lapses.
So councillors, as we do not have quorum, this item lapses. So if we could call the councillors back in. Just lapses, it can't be moved. There's no quorum. So councillors, that item lapsed for your information. Okay, we'll now move on to the next item. Nobody called this, but it is an absolute majority required. It's item 10.2.1, financial report for the period ended 30 November 2023. Do I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Bull, seconded Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Bull, Councillor Sutherland. I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. The next item hasn't been pulled either, but there's an interest, is item 10.2.4, financial report for the period ended 31 December 2023. Can I have a mover and seconder? Move Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Latter. Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Latter. I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. The next item is 10.3.2, bike education and skills track location options. Councillor Sutherland, you pulled this. Are you moving the officer's recommendation?
No, I'm not. I don't want to vote. I just pulled it to vote against it.
Okay. Would anyone like to move this item? Councillor Eveson.
Look, I want to move it with an alternative, and apologies I didn't make the deadline. It's just a slight adjustment, removing the second.
Okay, yep.
Yeah. So, sorry. Yeah. So I'd like to move my alternative for this one, which would be just removal of the second limb, just to note the report.
Okay, so you're happy that council notes what's on the screen? Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Osazowski, Councillor Eason.
Yeah, look, I just wanted, this reflects the discussion that was in the Skate and Bike Development Advisory Committee. There was a review done into Crimea Park for a location. It was deemed not suitable, so it wasn't going to go any further. This motion, I guess the alternative just says to note the report, and then if the city is, there's an overarching strategy that's being developed for skate and bike developments across the city, this would then just feed into that strategy and the forward works plan and blah, 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 all the other bits and pieces that feed the capital works process. So that's the reason for this alternative.
Thank you. Councillor Osazowski.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Eveson on what he said here, and I do recall the meeting that we had with the Skate Bike Development Committee, that there was interest to look at what these options were, but the committee wasn't really interested in moving this forward any further. Our report in front of us here also says that our skate and BMX strategy has been developed, and a final draft is going out for community comment, and that will be coming back in February or March. So it is the better opportunity to perhaps relook at this once that strategy has been completed.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against? Councillor
Just have
Johnson.
a question, if I might.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So either to the officers or the mover, I'm not sure. What is the consequence of removing limb 2? Does that mean that this setting up a bike skills track does not progress, or what happens with that?
Thank you. I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, by removing limb 2, you're not directly sending it to the advisory group to work on it, but there could be other avenues where this can come to life again through other reports and other requests that might come through other avenues.
Can I ask a follow-up, please? So that sounds to me that that's effectively killing off the idea. I mean, it is something that I've heard enthusiasm from members of the community, so it seemed like an opportunity, and they all seem like good locations. So I'm just wondering, perhaps, I don't know if this is a question to the mover, if maybe they do want to kill it off, I'm not sure, but that maybe the Active Transport Advisory Group could consider it perhaps instead if the Skate and Bike Development Advisory Group didn't want to. I don't know if there's another way of progressing this in the recommendation.
So is that a question? I'll go to the director.
Perhaps I'll foreshadow the officer's recommendation, or foreshadow an alternative that it be considered in the next budget.
Okay, so you're foreshadowing an alternate. Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I would like to move an amendment, please.
Which is?
Adding limb 2, which will be that council considers the issue as part of the discussion on the long-term financial plan.
I'll just check with the mover and seconder if they accept the amendment.
Yeah, it was the intent that yep, we can add some words to it, fine.
So the mover, seconder, do you accept the amendment? Is that a yes or? Yeah, we'll get the we'll get it on the screen, the wording, and if you can check the wording, Deputy Mayor.
Yes, the Deputy Mayor, just to repeat some of the comments.
Deputy Mayor, do you mind checking the wording if that captures your intent?
Discussions at the end. Yeah.
So Councillor Osazowski, do you agree?
Sure.
Yes? Okay, so that now forms part of the substantive. Deputy Mayor, do you wish to speak on this?
Yes, briefly, thank you. Look, I did it because I do concur that I am not of the view that this needs to be progressed at this stage, so I do agree with that. I think we should look at all those projects as part of our full analysis of all the projects that the city is doing, and I did mention it to the CEO how I think projects should come to us and not on an ad hoc basis, but as part of a full discussion about all the things that we would like to progress so councillors can actually prioritize them and not one after another, and definitely not creating expectations to something that we don't even know if we have the money or if it is actually the priority for us when it comes to cycling. We have a new bike plan. I'm not aware of any funding allocated for that or any significant funding. We have a list of actions that I think should be progressed. So we have lots of priorities. However, I do not think that it should be lost. I think the way is to collect those issues, those initiatives, great initiatives from the officers or from the public, and discuss them in the right way. And perhaps they should come to on the public record at some point with a summary of council's decisions, but not like that. I would like to see the full picture, how we are going to prioritize the bike plan, and this as part of that, but not on an ad hoc basis. So this is why I decided to not reject it, but not progress it either.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this item? If not, I'll go the mover to close.
Yep, that was the intent of removal of the second limb, so it would go through the process and be critiqued against all the other priorities that that the council, past, present, future, will commit to. So thanks for that. It's something good for the city in general. So
thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Maleka, Councillor Osazowski. That's unanimous. So the next item is 10.3.3 EMRC Special Council Meeting Minutes 9th of November 2023 and Ordinary Council Meeting Minutes 23 November 2023. Councillor Bull, you pulled this. Are you moving officers?
Happy to move the officer's recommendation, and I do have some questions.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Latta. Councillor Bull.
Thank you. Firstly, I wonder whether we'd be able to receive an update on the departure of Belmont and Kalamunda and how that is progressing and how that is looking to impact City of Bayswater.
Thanks for the question. I'll go to the Director. Sorry, the CEO would like to answer.
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor. We've got a CEO's meeting with the EMRC next week, so I'll get an update from the CEO of the EMRC in relation to any further developments. My understanding from the last meeting prior to the Christmas shutdown was that things were proceeding as per normal. There was some discrepancies in relation to the cash value of the withdrawal with Kalamunda, but I think that that is getting sorted. But I'll get an update and forward that out to councillors.
Thank you. That would be great. And then I have a question in relation to item 14.5 of the EMRC minutes. Item 14.5 of the EMRC minutes is entitled Major Trading Undertaking - Sale of Unprocessed FOGO Material. It's on page 131 of the EMRC minutes that I downloaded from their website, that I was taken to from the link in the agenda that the public can download from the City of Bayswater website. And so I had a read, and this item appears to be putting a process in place to send green lid bin waste material to Gingin, as opposed to processing it, as opposed to the EMRC processing it. So my question, firstly, is my understanding of this item correct?
Thank you for your question. I'll go to the Director.
Through the chair, that is correct. That is additional material that is being collected because of the other councils that are coming on board with FOGO. So ours and Bassendean's is going up to Red Hill and being processed there. But that facility up there is at capacity, and this is now additional material goes to this other facility to be processed there.
Okay, so I just want to make sure I understand. So City of Bayswater material will continue to be processed at the mobile aerator plant at Red Hill, despite 14.5. That's guaranteed.
Through the chair, that it could change in future, but that will be in discussion with the MRC. The reason why I say could change is that we could actually get potentially a better price if we were to do some different arrangements in terms of where we drop it off.
So thank you for that. So I'm interested to understand why the larger plant has not been progressed at the EMRC. Do we have any updates on that?
I'll go to the Director.
Through the chair, there were issues in terms of some contractual issues and how much it will cost in the end. So they're basically looking at other options at the moment. So it hasn't been shelved altogether, but they're looking at other options to try and bring the price down and make it more competitive.
Okay, thank you. So then in relation to what is proposed in 14.5, I am interested, it sounds like that there's the potential that City of Bayswater waste, FOGO waste, could be trucked to Gingin. So is it possible to get some clarification on how it is going to work? So, because when I read it, it looks like the City of Bayswater would pay the EMRC to receive the waste, and then the EMRC is able to sell that waste, on-sell it, to wherever it's going in Gingin, presumably for a profit. Firstly, is my understanding from reading correct that there will be that arbitrage? And then secondly, if that is correct, is there any discussion at the EMRC about that profit being distributed back to the member councils because we're going through this process as opposed to selling it to Gingin directly?
I'll go to the Director.
Through the chair, I think if I can take this on notice, I can get some more information from the EMRC and clarify it, and I can distribute it to councillors.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Thank you. I have nothing to speak on the item. Those were my questions, and I'm happy to move it.
Councillor Ladder, anything? Anyone else wish to speak on this? If not, I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. The next item is 10.4.1, proposed change of use to warehouse and health studio. No one's pulled this, but it is an absolute majority required. So do I have a mover? Councillor Sutherland, seconded Councillor Maleka. Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Maleka. Anyone wish to speak on this? If not, I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. The next item is 10.5.1.1, policy review, communications and social media policy. This is being pulled by the Deputy Mayor. Are you moving your alternate that you've provided?
Yes, on the run sheet.
Yeah. Okay, so that's been provided to councillors. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Johnson. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Look, councillors, the Policy Review and Development Committee has discussed it, I think a few months ago, this specific item for quite some time. So my alternative is based on the officer's recommendation plus all the other issues that the committee identified during our lengthy discussions. I also added here the two things that the officers proposed to us in their report that we will rectify. They're both very technical and I think very minor, so nothing is really substantial here. I support the revised or the new policy. I think it tweaks some of the provisions that we previously had. Specifically, I'm very happy to see a new process now that was initiated and supported by the committee to set up a process with regards to how councillors will promote the city activities to ensure that all councillors are going to be part of that. This is an issue, as you recall, that I mentioned in a notice of motion last year. It will drive for unity between councillors, fairness, and yeah, I think it's very positive. So I hope that council will support it.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
I just thank Councillor Peterson for picking up some of the things that were picked up through the discussions.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against? Councillor Eason.
I'd like to move a deferral motion. Probably just need to seek some guidance on. I haven't done one of these for a little while, just so.
Pardon me?
I wish to move a deferral motion.
To when?
Well, I guess the basis for it is for the manager for communications has been away, so I've got some questions still, but I think she's back next month. So is it the February OCM?
So you want to know if the manager
Yeah, that's probably a question first. Sorry.
is back for the February OCM? Okay, so you're moving a procedural motion to defer until
The
February
February
OCM.
Yes, please.
Do I have a seconder for the motion? Councillor Clark. Councillor Eason, did you wish to speak
No,
to the
look,
procedural motion?
Yeah, I guess, and look, probably just in my questions there, I did have quite a few questions for the manager, and I'm just probably more comfortable to speak to her about that, but hasn't been able to for some time because there's been a period of leave. So.
Okay. Okay, I will now put the procedural motion to the. Oh, no, sorry. I'll now put the procedural motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Maleka, Councillor Sazowski, Councillor Eason, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Ladder, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark and myself. All those against, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Johnson. That is carried. So the next item is 10.5.2.1 OAG Information Systems Audit period ending 30 June 2023. Councillor Bull, you pulled this one. Are you moving, officers?
I have questions that relate to the confidential attachment.
Okay, just give me 1 sec. So Councillor Bull, would you like to go behind closed doors now? Or would you like to move this to the confidential section?
I'm happy to move it to the confidential section in support of our residents in the gallery not having to sit outside.
Okay,
Yep.
so we're moving to move this item to section.
Might be longer.
So you're moving
Yes.
a motion to move this item to section 14 under
please.
confidential. Do
Thank
I have a seconder? Councillor Clark, Councillor Bull. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. So, sorry, I didn't see that. I'll take the vote again. All those for? That's Councillor Maleka, Councillor Osazowski, Councillor Eveson, Councillor Ladder, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark, Councillor Johnston and myself. All those against is Councillor Sutherland. That item will now be considered under section 14. So we'll now move on to the next item, which is 10.5.2.2, City of Bayswater Annual Report and Annual Financial Report 22-23. Councillor Johnson, you've pulled this one.
I did, just to move the committee's recommendation as amended. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much. We have a annual report ready to go and audited. It's quicker than it has been in many years, and very excited to be able to move this motion and to acknowledge the work of our staff, of the Audit and Risk Committee, our independent members on that committee, of the people that have been beavering away, even the Office of the Auditor General, who got cracking this year. Look forward to presenting that at the meeting to our electors on the 20th of March. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. Anyone wish to speak on this item? I'll put it straight to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. The next item is 10.5.3.1, new policy payments to independent members of committees and advisory groups. Deputy Mayor, you've pulled this item. Are you moving the recommendation?
Yes.
The committee, yep. Committee's recommendation.
Yes.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor, Councillor Maleka. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, this is another item that was discussed in length by the Policy Review and Development Committee. What you see before you is a compromise, a middle way, between different positions that the committee discussed. I think it is a reasonable way forward with regards to this new issue. We had lots of options, and this is what our officers proposed to us, this new mechanism, how we're going to reimburse our external members on committees. We're talking about community members. We have, I think, a few advisory committees and some advisory groups. There is the report explains the hierarchy. I think we should respect the time and effort that is spent by our community members, and there is time and effort that is invested into this. I am not aware, and I think we received some advice that the city could not find any other local government that already reimburses their committee members in light of the new option to do that. So I think it is great for our city to be the first ones in the Perth metro area and signal to all other local governments that we do value the time of our community members who come and sit, listen, contribute. And there are different options, and I think the rationale that other officers provided are very reasonable. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maleka.
Yes, thank you. I agree with everything that the Deputy Mayor has just said. Look, it's the first time we're doing this, so maybe you might think we're erring on the side of being conservative, but at least we're starting somewhere. We aren't paying our committees and advisory panels as yet. So this is a way forward. I think the tiered approach is actually quite sensible, and we can review it again in 2 years when we have new committees appointed. So yes, I'm really happy with this report. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against? Councillor Clark.
It may not be against, but I wanted to speak to the item at least.
Go ahead.
So I understand the Deputy Mayor's optimism. I like his optimism on this, and also Councillor Maleka's optimism. We haven't paid our committees before. It has come up on council before, prior to some of the state changes. I think it's a bit disappointing that the compromise ends up being that we don't seem to sort of equitably recognise groups like the Reconciliation Advisory Committee, Active Transport Committee, Disability Advisory Committee, and the Inclusion and Diversity Advisory Group. I think the expertise that sits on those groups is in many ways comparable to an audit and risk management committee. It just happens to sit in very different spheres of the world. Some of those people will have, quite significant qualifications that would warrant, a $400 sitting fee. So I find it a strange hierarchy to put in place. It is imposing a set of values over those committees and advisory groups, which I'm not 100% comfortable with. I'm also not comfortable with the idea that on page 769 of the printed agenda, that $100 would cover expenses such as 2 hours of childcare plus travel to and from the city. In other structures, you have childcare costs as childcare costs, and then you have a sitting fee, which is essentially a form of payment for expertise and time. Childcare costs should be separate and recognised separately and reimbursed separately. The idea that it's too arduous to put in an invoice and have that paid back to you, I think, is ridiculous. It happens all the time in terms of lots of other types of costs in many other businesses, not just in council. And again, it's a values judgment. Do you value someone who needs childcare being on your committees or not? And do you want to make those committees accessible and equitable for people who might not have the ability, might not have a partner at home? They might be single parents, they might be grandparents, they might have all sorts of family arrangements that mean that they need childcare to be able to then contribute to one of our committees and advisory groups. So whilst I love the optimism that we are making steps forward, for me it's not enough progress.
Thank you. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. I'm wondering if the mover might allow a teeny tiny amendment.
Which is?
I'm wondering if they would alter the table in the policy that all City of Bayswater Committee or Advisory Group members are paid the maximum attendance fee allowed by the current Salaries and Allowances Tribunal determination.
Does the mover accept that?
No, thank you. I don't think it's tiny.
Would you like to move?
Could I foreshadow that?
You can move and...
Or, okay, yeah, sorry. The process, yes. Could I move an amendment to that effect?
You can move an amendment and I'll see if there's a seconder.
I will move an amendment to that effect, please.
Seconded by Councillor Ball. Councillor Johnson, if you wish to speak to your amendment.
Thank you. I'm proposing that we pay the members of our valued members of our committee and advisory group from the community the attendance fees in line with how we as councillors are paid our attendance fees. We're paid at the maximum level set by the tribunal. It's set independently. It is currently, I think, $415. We don't discriminate on the basis of how much work we put into our agenda or what our qualifications are. We're asking for both the lived experience and the professional experience of the members of our advisory groups and committees. That we expect them to contribute. We choose them carefully, and I don't understand the rationale for not wanting to acknowledge that work now that we finally have the opportunity to do that.
Thank you. Councillor Ball.
Thanks. Yeah, and I say thank you to Councillor Johnson for bringing this forward. I do think it is the appropriate approach to this. You can't underestimate the value of the expertise and experience that community members and specialist members bring to all of the committees, and our community is stronger as a consequence of that because it makes the decision making more robust. And bringing payments in line with the existing regime is completely appropriate. And it does two things. It follows a system that is already in place, that has been stress tested, no doubt, and it tells the community members and specialist members that what they bring to each committee is critically important to help this council achieve the best that we can for our residents and ratepayers.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak against the amendment? Anyone wish to speak for the amendment? Councillor Ladder.
In the policy committee, I raised some concerns with the equity of paying people at those different rates, and it not adequately reflecting the lived experience and expertise that people were bringing to those committees and advisory groups. I think that it's important to keep in mind that we don't do people a favour by bringing them into those processes. They are doing us a favour by taking part in them, and that they should be compensated properly for what they bring to those processes. So I'd be very happy to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
I'm just also supporting this. I mean, I think the argument that it brings it in line with existing practice, it's independent with the tribunal. I mean, when you actually look at the sums, you know, if part of this is, you know, cost cutting and reining the budget in and things like that, I mean, it is a very small amount when you look at the total sum of our budget, and when you look at some of our other expenditure, things like the EAP project at, you know, around about $6 million, we haven't had debates like that, like this, over that issue, have we? We haven't gone through line by line who's buying which computers and whether they need a computer or not, although I fear that perhaps our budget workshops may become that. So I just sort of think, well, this is important. This is how you run modern governance, where you pay people for the work that they do in committees and advisory groups.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? If not, I'll go to the mover to close.
Thank you. Councillors, it is independent, it is equitable, and I think it's the right thing for us to do at a small cost for a big benefit. So I urge you to support this amendment.
Thank you. I'll now put the amendment to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Ladder, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark and Councillor Johnson. All those against is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Osazowski, Councillor Eveson, Councillor Sutherland, Deputy Mayor and myself. The amendment is lost. Now go back to the substantive motion. Anyone who hasn't spoken on the substantive wish to speak? Councillor Eveson.
Yeah, look, I'm going to propose an alternative. It's going to be deja vu from the committee meeting, to be honest. So my alternative's been provided in the run sheet.
In the run sheet.
Yeah.
So are you proposing an amendment?
Look, I'll propose an alternative motion, please.
So you're foreshadowing.
Foreshadow this one. Yep.
You're foreshadowing. Okay. Yep. So do you want to speak to what's on the table?
Yeah, look, I can relive the highlights from the committee. So, look, I see this as a cost recovery, and there is discussion around being equitable and on, I guess, valuing someone's time, experience, qualified skills, non-qualified skills, all of those sorts of elements. It's very difficult. I respect that the city has got a structure for it. I see the world probably a little bit differently. Volunteering on committees is because you're really passionate about your community and a certain topic that the council also sees as passionate, and has hence established a committee as well as an advisory group, which is a new thing. Therefore, I'd rather be tentative and dip the toe in the water a little bit slower and look at the $100.
You're speaking to the
a lesser value
substantive motion?
Yep.
Okay,
The reason why I'm not supporting,
Okay.
or I'm feeling not to support the motion that's on the table. So I'd be looking at a lesser value. I agree with audit risk, as that's business critical, but I think we need to look at a cost recovery model for volunteers.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the substantive motion? Councillor Ladder?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's the perfect solution that I really want in my heart. I'm willing to support this, I think, as a compromise between the different positions on council so that we can get something down and get people start to be paid. I feel like it's an acceptable starting place, although I don't feel like it's I feel like there is still progress to be made after this.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on the substantive? If not, I'll go to the mover to close.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and those who spoke, and thank you to the council who supported this when I suggested it after the election in October to look into a policy on this issue, and now we're already discussing it after a lengthy discussion at the policy committee, so thank you to everyone. As was mentioned, I think by Councillor Meleka, this is the first time, and there will be an option for us to review this and revise the numbers if we need to. I think that's part of the process. I do think this is a reasonable model. There are differences in the expectations and responsibilities between members of the different committees and advisory groups. It was made very clear to us by the officers. Some advisory groups will not have lengthy agendas. Much preparation will not be required versus advisory committees. I think it is actually fair what is on the table. If we'll discover in a year time or 2 years time that it is not fair, we can change it. But at this stage, in light of all the advice that we received at the committee, and we asked lots of questions, there are differences. And we are valuing the time and effort, but there are differences. I don't think a member that will work a week in advance on an agenda should receive the same payment as someone who just rock up to a committee meeting. I think there should be some differences, and we didn't have any other model to copy, and I think this is reasonable as a first step forward. I'll finish by saying that I think it will be a shame if this is rejected and nothing will be given to our committee members, because if this is rejected, it's nothing. And we are already now in the process of recruiting committee members, and I'm hoping that we will be able to re-advertise and get more interest in our committees and advisory committees, so I think it will be good to set this. Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, I'm just going to clarify there is a foreshadowed motion on the table. So you just stated if this doesn't get up, they'll get nothing, but there is a foreshadowed.
Thank you.
Just to clarify.
Thank you. And sorry, I'll just want just another sentence, if I can, Madam Mayor. As we heard, there are different views on the table. Some think that the maximum payment should be given. Some think that much less. We did even consider $0 at the committee. So there are different options. This is the middle way, councillors. Thank you.
Okay, I'll now put the substantive motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Meleka, Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against? Councillor Ostrowski, Councillor Eason, Councillor Sutherland. That is carried. So the next item is 10.5.3.2. Policy review, councillor complaints policy. Councillor Bull, you've pulled this one.
Yeah, I'd like to move to procedural motion to refer this to the next ordinary council meeting to give me time to give my feedback to the city, which is going to kind of actually make it work. There's got some drafting issues that I'm sure you don't want me to go through tonight, which is if the deferral goes down, I'll be going through all of them as an amendment.
So procedural motion has been moved. I'll just see, is there a seconder? Councillor Latta, Councillor Bull, did you wish to speak to your procedural motion?
Yes, I've gone through it, and on the whole, I will probably vote for it. But there are some issues in terms of some of the drafting and the use of some of the defined terms. There are some terms that are defined that don't have definitions. There are some defined terms that aren't capitalised, and there's a couple of mechanical things that I think need finessing, such as referring to 1 month, and that can be interpreted as 30 days, 31 days, 28 days. So it's these kinds of things that will provide certainty and make sure that the document works, which at the moment I think just has these issues.
Thank you. I'll now put the procedural motion to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Easton, Councillor Sutherland, Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark, Councillor Johnston and myself. All those against is Councillor Osazowski. That is carried. Okay. Sorry. We'll now move to adopt the remaining items in section 10 en bloc. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Move Councillor Maleka, seconded Councillor Osazowski. All those in favour? That's unanimous. Okay, so we'll now move on to notices of motion. 11.1, notice of motion, Councillor Latta, proposed installation of additional flagpole at City of Bayswater Civic Centre. Would you like to read out your notice of motion or not? It's up to you. No? Okay, do I have a seconder? Councillor Clark. Councillor Latta.
I brought this motion to council because I wanted to fly a pride flag, and this is the only way that we could do that. I think it's important to demonstrate our inclusivity in this way. Whilst the officer's report details other flags that we can fly, I just wanted to make my intention clear with this. And I think that those other flags are an added benefit, but I wanted to specifically speak about why it's important to fly the pride flag during Pride particularly. It matters for governments to be visibly inclusive in this way because it saves lives, it encourages engagement with the city and participation in civic life, and because it's incredibly meaningful for any level of government to proclaim their support for LGBTQ people in a visible way like this. We can set the tone in our district. I want to thank Lauren Butterley, the CEO of Pride WA, for her deputation outlining the significance of this action to the community. Dr. Butterley mentions the high risk of self-harm, suicide and mental health issues that result from the myriad prejudices and exclusions that LGBTQ people, and especially young people, experience in their daily lives. We cannot forget that a large anti-LGBTQ protest in my memory happened within our district last year. And I applaud the city and councillors for their response to it in the moment, but those kinds of events have a lasting impact on the people affected, and our response should be lasting too. When people face those kinds of prejudices, we must make that extra effort to deliberately reach out and make clear that we welcome and celebrate them in the City of Bayswater. That is the leadership role that we should embrace as a council. I thought that this would be a simple motion, a clear and inexpensive way for this council to show its support year on year for an important and marginalised section of our population. And I've received messages of support, but also a few really disgusting responses to this being in the agenda. And I want to apologise to the CEO of Pride WA for the awful message that she received too. Some people are so uncomfortable with inclusion, with LGBTQ people being respected and welcomed, that they're willing to express their prejudices openly. This behaviour has only reinforced for me that this is an important step to take, that we must show leadership and demonstrate the pathway forward. I hope we take a stand and support this motion, reinforcing that that kind of behaviour has no place here. Council and councillors have supported other projects that highlight the unique needs of vulnerable parts of our community, from the Blue Trees project to the Arana House benches. All of these have costs that we deem acceptable because of the outcomes that they achieve. I would be really disappointed if we drew the line at this public display of LGBTQ inclusion. Many local governments fly the Pride flag, from Bassendean, Vic Park, Vincent, even City of Perth flies it permanently. We should have no problem proudly flying that flag for staff, residents, and especially for our young people.
Thank you. Councillor Clark.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Latta for bringing forward this notice of motion. I must confess I too was a bit surprised at the strength of some responses. I too thought what a lovely idea, and why haven't we done it sooner, and would have thought that it would be relatively simple. And I think councillors around this table, as you consider your vote tonight, it is relatively simple, that this is what we're doing, as Councillor Latta has so eloquently put it. And what I can add to the debate is to also point out on page 809 of the printed agenda, the public and the councillors around this table can see the other notable days that could be considered by the administration in consideration with the city's advisory groups where an associated pennant or flag could be flown. So I'm actually going to go through them all because I think this shows how we can actually implement inclusivity in a quite significant way. So obviously Pride Week, anniversary of Australian Federation Day, Australia Day, Commonwealth Day, Harmony Day, Anzac Day, National Reconciliation Week, National Sorry Day, Mabo Day and NAIDOC Week. And I think that's particularly poignant after the Voice outcome of last year. International Women's Day, 16 days in WA as well, so to the point around Arana House and the purple benches. National Australia Flag Day, Citizenship Day, King's Birthday, United Nations Day, Wear It Purple Day, Are You OK Day, Youth Week, Chinese New Year, also very important in a district where we have some of the, I heard last week we're actually the third most culturally diverse council in the state, a stat that I hadn't come across yet. I knew that we had significant cultural diversity, but I didn't realise we were in the top three. Halloween, also I thought a favourite that people might get into, or perhaps not. Maybe that's where people draw the line. Who knows? Various seasons, and importantly, the International Day for People with Disabilities. And I'm sure that there are more that we could actually find and come up with. And I think the importance of this is that at the end of the day, we can talk about it, we can pass access and inclusion plans and things like that, but we've actually got to deliver it. We've got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk. So I really hope that people around this table support this notice of motion. I think it's a really important one. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak against? Anyone for? Councillor Johnson.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Latta, for bringing this forward. I didn't know that the reason that we didn't fly a pride flag was because we didn't have a flagpole, and this is like a really simple fix. I think there'll be, after the communications of positivity that I received, that we all received last year, I think there'll be no flag more popular on it, flying proudly outside our city offices than this one. So really welcome this one.
Thank you. Councillor Osuzowski.
Thank you. I wanted to start by first of all acknowledging all of the people that have emailed me over the last week and a bit regarding this notice of motion, and I thank them for their comments regarding this. I wanted to say that I believe we can demonstrate inclusivity. We can demonstrate, or we can be visible in our demonstration of being inclusive, and we can show support for the LGBTQI plus community, of which I am a member. I believe we can do this in a very visible way, right on the verge at Broome Avenue there. We have a beautiful digital sign there, which I believe we spent, I remember in budget papers a couple of years back, I think it was $50,000 on this beautiful big digital sign there. And I believe we can show our inclusiveness and our acceptance of people's the diverse community by using our digital sign, which is right on the verge, much more visible to everyone passing through Broome Ave than the flagpoles, which are set right back into the city property. We also have the potential to use, there's a big beautiful sign that the city puts up for various events at the corner of Broome Ave and Drake Street, where they advertise community events. So I also believe that space could be used to demonstrate our inclusivity in again, a much more visible space. We also here at the city light up our undercovered area in the various different colours of the Pride flag during Pride Month. So I guess what I'm saying is I can understand and appreciate the reasoning for moving this motion. I believe we can already show our community that we are inclusive in a much more visible way by using some of the infrastructure that we've already got.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak on this? If not, I'll go the mover to close.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that. I was trying to be very quick to click.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Look, I will support this. and I will not support it for the person that we saw their comment today saying that inclusiveness, what a load of bullshit. So I will not support it for him. I will support it for all those who do appreciate this and feel that they need it to be seen, to be regarded, not to feel excluded. Those who have an issue, I think, with the flag, if it's the pride flag or the disability flag or the Harmony Day flag, I think it is because they don't feel they need it. But there are some people in our community, and there are not few, that feel that they do want that attention. We talked about visibility. I think the issue is with the flag. And we can talk about inclusion and diversity as much as we want in our plans and strategies, but this is a great way to signal to all our communities in the city of Bayswater that we provide leadership, and we do regard those people that feel sometimes ignored, discriminated. And those flags might change with time. You know, in 20 years, there will be different flags. So I think it's a great way to address some of the issues in some of our communities, the migrants. We talk a lot about multiculturalism, but how strong this can be during Harmony Day to see that orange flag during that month or week, telling all the people who drive there, we care about you. You are part of that, not just in our plans when we are just, approving them every year, multiculturalism. We care so much that we are putting you, like other shires, this is not the first time, putting you at the front, next to, not far from the City of Bayswater sign, saying you're important enough for us. And I'll say, those actions are not for those who think that they are not necessary. There are those, and we are doing that for those who feel that it is needed. And when I spoke about this with residents, they were very supportive. So I do not think that councillors should be afraid for some opposition that we received by emails. I think that opposition shows why we need to show leadership. I think the message that will go out to our community will be wrong. We will say, we do not care about you so much to have a flag. Councillors, it is only a flag.
I'll go to the mover to close.
Thank you. Thanks everybody who's spoken, and I really appreciate your ideas, Councillor Ostaszewski, and I think that they're a great addition to putting a flag up. I love them, but I do think that a flag has a particular symbolism and significance, and I think that it's an important aspect of this motion that it is raising a flag. Thank you. I really urge people to, to consider this on its merits and consider the impact that your vote tonight will have on people in our community.
Thank you. I'll now put this to the vote. All those in favour? That's Councillor Latta, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark, Councillor Johnson. All those against is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Ostaszewski, Councillor Eason, Councillor Sutherland and myself. That's 5-5. I used my casting vote and that is lost. So we'll now move to item 12, questions from members without notice. Are there any questions? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you. Yes, I do have a question to the officers, please, Madam Mayor. We have a few historic protected facades along Guildford Road. All of us know them, like Williamson's Garage, the Albany Bell Hatchery. They are very much neglected with graffiti on them. I would like to know what responsibility do the relevant owners have to maintain those facades and keep them in a reasonable condition, and whether the city can take any actions to deal with this issue.
Thanks for your question. I'll go to the Director.
Thank you. Through the Mayor, we can certainly write to those landowners and request that the graffiti be cleaned from the properties, particularly because they are heritage listed, depending on their category. And for example, Williamson is on the State Heritage List from memory. I imagine the State Heritage Office would also like to be made aware of the situation as well. So we will deal with it and write to them.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question. So can we, the city, also look at what actions the city can do if they do not do that? What enforcement actions? This is what I'm interested. If they will not actually maintain those facades, what actions the city can take?
Sure. Typically, the action that we can take is in relation to dilapidation as opposed to an amenity consideration, which relates back to graffiti. So what we can do is we can encourage them to remove the graffiti on the basis that it is a heritage building and work with them. And we do have fairly good success rate working with residents with respect to compliance matters. So I would hope that those landowners would come to the party in that respect. We can also seek assistance from the State Heritage Office if they would also like to assist in intervening. But if the properties or the buildings themselves aren't dilapidated, so they're not structurally unsound, etc., it's not something that we could legally pursue.
Even if it is on the state heritage list?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Johnson.
Given you did such a great job communicating to our diverse community last year, I'm just wondering, and you didn't talk on Councillor Ladder's 11.1 notice of motion. Could you please explain why you voted against it?
If I wanted to do that, I'm happy to talk to you outside of this chamber.
Yes, please.
Councillor Sadowski.
Thank you. My question is regarding the bushland at the back of the World Square Primary School. There was a motion brought to an AGM about a year and a half ago, and I know the city has been working to try and resolve the issue around the management of that bushland, in particularly regards to bushfire management. Just wondering if the city has any updates on where we're up to at managing that bushfire risk area.
Thank you. I'll go to the director.
Thank you through the mayor, and thank you for your question. I understand that the city has been trying to deal with this piece of bushland for some time, and in fact there was a small fire there in December, which prompted myself writing to the Director General of the Department of Education on the 3rd of January this year. As a result, I received a response on the 24th of January of this month and this year, whereby we actually met with the Department of Education and their officers yesterday on site. The contractors will be undertaking an increased minimum height of the tree canopy to enable access for emergency vehicles, clear a path through the bush to act as a fire break and allow emergency vehicle access, reduce the amount of leaf litter and other flammable material at ground level, remove dead and fallen branches, and they're also looking at engaging with the school to establish if there are opportunities for the area to be maintained, possibly through education programs with the children themselves. And this work is expected to be undertaken shortly. They just have to go through a quotation process and appoint the contractor, and it will be undertaken.
Thank you. And just to follow up on that then, was there any indication that instead of this just being a once-off, because we've been agitating, that this will become part of their ongoing annual maintenance of that bushland area?
Sure, thank you. Through the chair, it was I requested of the Director General to look at a one-year management plan ongoing. So annually they would manage the bushland. That was reinforced out on site as well. However, it is something that we'll have to consider next year during bushfire season to see if that has been taken up. And if not, I will go through that process again.
Thank you very much for getting some action in that space.
Councillor Eason.
Yeah, I've just got one. Noting the ongoing progress of the Morley Station and the success of the electric bus trial in the city of Joondalup, has the city had discussions with Metronet around a similar CAT service to connect Morley Town Centre with the new Morley train station that's around 2.5 kilometres away from in Embleton?
I'll go to the director.
Through the chair, the city has had discussions with the Public Transport Authority and Transperth in regards to the connection between the new station and the Morley Activity Centre. At this point in time, what they're looking at is extending the 950 route, and it's going to cover that connection there. But there's also some interesting developments in terms of they're looking at the possibility of a superbus route between the station and the activity centre. So what that means is that they're looking at the possibility of having a dedicated route there with a special service with additional infrastructure. So more frequent operation along there and dedicated lanes and things like that where they can fit it in. Obviously, there's some space restrictions there. What they're looking at also is that it will be an electric bus service. But at this stage, it's still under the investigation, so no decisions have been made. They're getting the information together and doing the reports. The city is involved in discussions as part of that. And basically, yeah, we'll operate along, what they're looking at is actually along Walter Road West.
Just one more, because there's a lot of detail, and thanks very much for that, Director. Is there some dialogue ongoing with Galleria in regards to, obviously, with some of the, kicking the can down the road with their development over time? This sounds quite interesting. Is there ongoing conversation? Are they involved in these?
Through the chair, at this stage, it's early stages, so that will be introduced at some stage into those discussions. I think at the moment they're just looking at the feasibilities of how it can work and what's required in terms of having the modifications and whatnot they need to do along that road.
Councillor Ladder.
There's some public question time in writing questions and answers, and in it regarding the Hotham Bridge, it mentions that the PTA has advised that they have plans to upgrade Meltham Station in the future, and then that will provide a modified pedestrian overpass, presumably. I'm just wondering if there's some kind of time frame on that. Is it 2, 5, 10 years, 20 years?
I'll go to the Director.
Through the chair, we don't have an exact time frame. All we know is that once the Morley-Ellenbrook line is completed, that they will be looking at upgrades to the Meltham Station.
Councillor Johnson.
Question on the same item. So on the 12th of January this year, I got an email from Main Road saying they were upgrading the Hotham Street Bridge by adding an extra car lane and removing a path that's used for pedestrians and cyclists. It's a pretty disappointing outcome, I think, for active transport and commuters in our area. I'm just wondering, what has the city done to advocate for the pedestrian and cyclist upgrades at this area in light of the closure?
I'll go to the Director.
Through the chair, when Main Roads were developing the designs, the city did advocate to have a connection over the bridge, but to fit 3 lanes over the bridge, that the existing pathway had to go, unless they went and demolished the bridge and built a brand new bridge, but the budget did not allow that to occur. So now we know that the PTA is looking at upgrades to the Meltham Station. Part of that is to upgrade the pedestrian connections around there and to make improvements, and also to have, basically I think they're looking at putting in a new overpass for pedestrians. So when that is designed, we will be working with them to make sure that we have a suitable connection for all the active transport in the area.
If I can just ask a follow-up question, is there anything that the city can do to improve cycling and pedestrian and active transport infrastructure in this area in the immediate short term before that long wait happens?
Through the chair, there's not a great deal we can do in terms of the existing infrastructure. We can go and have a look to see if we can make some minor adjustments there, if there's anything that's not quite right or could be improved. But in terms of PTA's plans to develop the station, we'll be actively involved in that to make sure that that they listen to us and we make sure that we have all the connections that we need to have there.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Just a follow-up question. I think I heard the Director saying that Main Roads are planning to have a new overpass for at the Meltham Station. Is this correct? Is this what I heard?
Through the chair, it's not main roads, it'll be PTAs, part of the train
PTA.
station. So that's what's initially been discussed, that they will have a new connection. The overpass currently doesn't basically comply.
Okay.
So it will need to be upgraded at some stage in future.
Okay. So, but we don't have any time frames.
Not at this stage, no.
Thank you.
All we know is that it's going to be, once the Morley-Ellenbrook line's done, they'll be looking at upgrading that station. My understanding is that the actual trains are longer and the platform needs to be increased in length at Melton Station, so that is why they'll probably start working on developing that station fairly soon after the Morley-Ellenbrook line's being completed.
So the upgrade to the Meltham station will include new platforms?
Through the chair, that's my understanding. We don't know the details, the full details at this stage, but we do know that they need to extend those platforms at some stage.
Sorry, and that will occur also for the Mellon station? New platforms there?
Through the chair, I'm not sure. I need to take that on notice. I can find out and provide that
Thank
information.
you. I'd be interested. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, I'll move on to item 13, new business of an urgent nature. There is none this evening. Item 14, confidential items. We now have one item under this section, so I'll just ask members and the live stream to be turned on. Oh, sorry. I'll just get a mover, Councillor Bull, to go behind closed doors. Councillor Bull moving, Councillor Eveson seconding. All those in favour? That is Councillor Maleka, Councillor Eason, Councillor Ladder, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Bull, Councillor Clark, Councillor Johnson and myself. All those against, Councillor Ostaszewski and Councillor Sutherland, will now go behind closed doors. I will now close this evening's meeting at 9:21 p.m. Thank you.